Tim Baldwin, Communications Director for American Coaster Enthusiasts. The very first log flume in the world opened here at Six Flags Over Texas back in 1963. And aside from like the roller coaster, this is the go-to ride that was the big crowd pleaser. No one had ever seen anything like it, and obviously it was the first. And it became, we gotta go do this. And then you wanted to go back to it because everyone loves it. Not just the kids, not just the thrill seekers, but it just had a wide audience. It became a staple for the amusement industry that everyone had to have one in their park. First one was built in 1963, and it became such a popular attraction that Six Flags Over Texas basically conceded, we need another one. So 5 years later, they added flume number 2 in 1968. And you know, they still maintain their popularity. Everyone wants to do the log ride before they end their visit at the theme park. What I think is so great about a log ride is everyone can do it. I mean, everyone. It doesn't just have a niche. And when I go around the world riding roller coasters and visiting theme parks, I still want to do their log flume because each one is unique, has their own subtle touches, and they're just pleasing. They're fun, they're simple, and they have their charm. It's not just nostalgia, it's just something you want to do because it's just a pleasurable thing. When theme parks were just beginning back in the 60s and 70s, there just weren't a lot of options to go buy rides from, and Arrow was the leader at that time because you could get log rides and roller coasters and dark rides and car rides. They were the go-to company, and they provided to Six Flags, to Disney, to all these new theme parks that were starting up. They were the company you just had to be in touch with. I think Arrow will be remembered because they kept pushing the boundaries. I mean, they started water rides, and then with coasters, when they introduced tubular steel, that really took roller coasters in a whole new direction, and eventually that evolved into coasters with inversions. We had the corkscrew, and then you just kept getting bigger and bigger until the seven loopers came out, and the looping craze really did define the 70s and even into the 80s. It was just amazing. And then they kept pushing again when they built Magnum at Cedar Point. That was one without loops, but they were pushing the limits on how high can we go. So Arrow was always thinking, what is the next big thing? You know, the amusement industry, as it continued to grow, became more competitive. There were more players in the industry. You had Vekoma, you had B&M come in there, you had the wooden coasters make their resurgence, and all the companies doing dark rides. Intamin was coming in with coasters and water rides. So the competition was fierce, and with those new companies adding more product to become available, Arrow just kind of became the old kid on the block momentarily. It's hard to say why Arrow really did fall by the wayside. I know they tried that resurgence and they were hoping X was going to be their big breakthrough to make a big comeback, a big return. X had its issues. It was a thriller, and people who wrote it thought, wow, there's nothing like this. Again, they pushed boundaries. But I guess maybe it was problematic enough that there were things out there that were a little bit more reliable. You know, for their time, Arrow was pushing the limits with inversions and things, but for historians, like American Coaster Enthusiasts, we have a little bit of a soft spot in our heart for the Arrow clunk. You know, there's always a little headbanging, a little clunkiness to the wheels and things, because for its time, that was the state of the art. It was just a product of its time. And yeah, they have a little bit of bump and clunk to them, but we like that. No, Arrow developed tubular steel in 1959, and then when Six Flags Over Texas wanted to put in their first $1 million ride into the park, they went to Arrow, and we got the Runaway Mine Train. The Mine Train was an instant hit. It was just huge, so much so that every theme park that opened after Six Flags Over Texas, they demanded one. They wanted a mine train roller coaster. That was the state of the art in the 60s and the 70s, and until Arrow brought in the looping inversions, mine train coasters created a genre that they still enjoy success today. Everyone loves them. Arrow was the go-to company. They were thinking it up. They were setting the trends. They were making the industry push itself. What more can we do? How can we thrill these guests with new ideas? I remember Ron being a very quiet man, a very kind man, a very humble man. People will recall he always seemed to have a piece of twisted wire in all his interviews. You know, how can we twist people upside down? He never really liked to ride the upside down coasters, but the last time that I got to see Ron, he was here at Six Flags Over Texas taking a ride on the mine train, the first mine train coaster that was ever built. So what a great last memory for me to have of him, you know, on one of his most influential rides of his career. To my knowledge, Ron was brought in by Arrow to design the Runaway Mine Train coaster, and it was not supposed to be a full-time career, but it was so successful, it was a merging of two fantastic entities coming together.
Did you call it fate?
Destiny. That's what it was. It was destiny that Ron found Arrow and Arrow found Ron. I don't think Arrow will ever be forgotten because they helped the theme park industry become a reality. Without all these great rides that they were coming up with, there wouldn't be the just resounding success of theme parks in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Without Arrow, it couldn't have happened. They were the principal company that made this industry be able to be successful, to grow.